All right, the first thing we are going to look at with the questions from yesterday is the table that you had to fill out according to the story. The story is up here on the left, and the table we are going to fill out is in the bottom right-hand corner. So the first step says that Tommy arrives to Mrs. H's class early. It's important to realize that Mrs. H's class is represented by a 0, 0. The time column means that time is always increasing. So regardless of how we go throughout this story, time is continually going on. We never stop time. It never goes back. It's always a constant thing that's going. So for as far as time goes, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the times for you. You can see at each step of the story, the time increased. And in the end, the entire story or the entire trip that Tommy took 130 seconds. The distance, however, depends on distance from the classroom. So the classroom is represented by 0. That's our starting location. From there, he continually kept walking away from the classroom until we got back to step H. At that point, he returned back to the classroom. Your times are filled out as so. One thing I want you to notice is the very last spot represents a 0. Again, the distance column means how far is Tommy away from the classroom. In step H, it said that he returned back to the science classroom. That's why we're going to represent it with a 0. For the questions, we're going to go through these together. The first one says, what was the total travel time in seconds from when the student left the classroom to when they returned? When we think about the previous table that we just filled out, the entire trip that Tommy took, he spent 130 seconds completing that trip. It then says, what is this travel time in minutes and seconds? Well, we know that there are 60 seconds in a minute, so that means converting 130 seconds is 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Next it says, what was the furthest distance from the room that the student reached? Well, the farthest point that Tommy ever got was 20 meters away. Then it says, what was the total distance that the student traveled in the story? Well, if Tommy started somewhere and he walked somewhere that was a total distance of 20 meters away and then returned back to the starting point, that means he walked 20 meters there and 20 meters back. That means the total distance that he traveled was 40 meters. The next question asks for his average speed, and we've already learned that the equation for speed equals distance divided by time. In this equation, we have 40 meters divided by 130 seconds. That's going to give us 0.31 meters per second, and that's his average speed. For this question, it says, which of the graphs are both runners moving at the same exact speed? We need to remember that speed equals distance divided by time. So on these graphs, we're looking for two runners that covered the same amount of distance in the same amount of time. For this question, the answer is graph C. You can see that both runners were moving at the same exact speed because they both covered 10 meters in 4 seconds. This question says, what is the total distance for runner 2, the dotted line in graph A? So we are looking at graph A and just the dotted line. You can see that the dotted line person starts at 20 meters, and in 4 seconds they run to 30 meters. That means the total distance that they ran was 10 meters, or 10 yards. The next question says, which of the graphs show that one of the runners started 10 yards further ahead of the other? We have to remember that the starting point always lies on the y-axis, and we are looking for two runners that started 10 yards apart. That answer is going to be graph A. You can see that the first runner started at 0, the second runner started at 10 yards, giving you a difference of 10 yards further ahead. This question says, in graph D, which of the runners is faster? So we are looking down here at graph D, and we want to know if the dotted line or the solid line is moving. Remember that the slope of the line is going to help to determine how fast a runner is running. When we look at both of these, they both take 4 seconds, but they both cover different distances. The bottom one only covers 10 meters in 4 seconds. And the top line covers 20 meters in 4 seconds. That means the top line, the dotted line, is the one that is actually running faster.